Hello and welcome to The Awakening with Kelvin Phiri Podcast, part of the Bridges to Prosperity series. Before we go further, let me make this important disclaimer. This episode is based on public information, including reports from Lusaka Times, News Diggers, and the National Prosecution Authority. It is not legal advice, nor is it a prediction of the outcome. My goal here is to inform, to spark dialogue, and to help us reflect on what these developments mean for the future of our country. In one of our earlier episodes, we examined the landmark corruption case involving former Foreign Affairs Minister Joseph Malanji and former Treasury Secretary Fredson Yamba. It was a case that dominated headlines in Zambia and beyond. For many, it represented a turning point in the country's fight against corruption, a test of whether the rule of law could reach the highest levels of government. The Lusaka Subordinate Court convicted the two on September 3rd, 2025, and sentenced Malanji to 4 years and Yamba to 3 years with hard labor on September 4th, 2025. The judgment sent ripples across the nation. Some Zambians saw it as a sign of progress, that the justice system was finally holding powerful figures accountable. Others were more skeptical, questioning whether the convictions would stand the test of time. And now, just weeks later, we see both sides preparing to battle it out again in the High Court. Let's begin with Joseph Malanji. His lawyers, Makebi Zulu Advocates, have filed a notice of appeal. The arguments are detailed, but at the heart of it, they say the magistrate got it wrong in both law and fact. First, they argue that the court acted without proper jurisdiction. In their view, the magistrate court did not have the authority to make some of the rulings it did. This might sound technical, but jurisdiction is one of the pillars of any case. If a court oversteps its mandate, the entire judgment can be called into question. Second, they say the magistrate misapplied the principle of corporate legal personality. In law, a company is treated as a separate legal person, distinct from its directors or shareholders. Malanji's team argues that the court ignored this principle and effectively treated him and the companies he was linked to as one and the same. Third, the appeal takes issue with the conclusion that money for 2 helicopters came from Malanji's trips to Turkey and Morocco. His lawyers insist that there was no evidence for such a finding. To them, this was an assumption, not a fact proven in court. And when you are dealing with criminal charges, assumptions are not enough. The law requires proof beyond reasonable doubt. It is worth noting that while some international reports describe this as a helicopter corruption trial, Malanji's defense specifically contests the evidentiary link between those trips and the aircraft purchases. Finally, the lawyers are challenging the state's move to seize Malanji's properties under the Forfeiture of Proceeds of Crime Act number 19 of 2010. They argue that the law was misapplied and that the procedure for forfeiture was not properly followed. So from Malanji's side, the appeal is not just about saying, I am innocent. It is a technical, multi-layered argument about how the law was interpreted, how evidence was treated, and whether proper procedures were followed. But this story has another side, because while Malanji appeals his conviction, the government is also appealing through the Director of Public Prosecutions, Kelvin Phiri. The DPP's notice of appeal focuses not on the convictions themselves, but on the sentences. The DPP believes that the punishments 4 years for Malanji and 3 years for Yamba were too lenient, considering the seriousness of the offenses. This creates an interesting situation. On one side, Malanji is asking the High Court to overturn his conviction. On the other, the state is asking the High Court to consider whether the punishment should actually be harsher. Both sides are unhappy with the magistrate court's decision, though for very different reasons. convictions. So what does this mean for Zambia? First, it highlights the seriousness of this case. When both the defense and the prosecution appeal, it shows that the stakes are high. The High Court will have to carefully balance these competing claims, reviewing the evidence, the law, and the reasoning of the magistrate court. This will not be a simple process. It will likely take time, and the outcome will set a precedent for future cases. Second, it underscores the importance of institutions. For ordinary Zambians, this is about more than Joseph Malanji or Fredson Yamba. It is about whether our judiciary can stand firm, independent, and impartial, even when the stakes are political and the personalities are powerful. If the judiciary manages this appeal transparently and fairly, it will strengthen public trust. But if people perceive bias or inconsistency, it could deepen skepticism and weaken confidence in the rule of law. Third, we must consider the international dimension. Investors, donors, and the diaspora are watching. Zambia has been working hard to present itself as a country that respects good governance, transparency, and accountability. A fair and transparent appeal process will reassure those who are considering investing or returning home. It tells them contracts are protected, the courts are functional, and justice is applied evenly. On the other hand, if the process is messy or seen as biased, it could hurt Zambia's reputation. And let us not forget the bigger picture. Corruption cases like this one are not just about punishing individuals, they are about sending a message that no one is above the law and that public service is about serving the people, not enriching oneself. Whether the appeal strengthens or weakens that message will depend on how the High Court handles it. So, what are the possible outcomes? Three main scenarios are likely. First, the conviction is upheld. The High Court may find no error in the magistrate's judgment and confirm both the convictions and the sentences. Second, the conviction is overturned. If the appeal succeeds, Malanji could walk free. This outcome would be highly controversial and would raise serious questions about the strength of the prosecution's case. Third, the sentences are increased. If the DPP's cross-appeal succeeds, Malanji and Yamba could face longer prison terms, reinforcing the government's message of zero tolerance on corruption. Whatever happens, the decision will shape Zambia's governance story for years to come. If you found this discussion valuable, please subscribe to Building Dreams in Africa on YouTube and follow the Awakening with Kelvin Phiri Podcast for more episodes in the Bridges to Prosperity series. Until next time, this has been the Awakening with Kelvin Phiri. Stay informed, stay engaged, and God bless. And let me end with this reminder: the matters we have discussed remain before the courts. Only the courts have the authority to decide the outcome. What I have shared is based on public reporting, not on personal judgment.